Hey guys, how you doing? I'm back today for a vinyl finds video. Got about I don't know, 11, 12 albums to show, and I think most of these are online purchases. So recently I was showing a spiritualized album along with Spacemen 3 and Spectrum. Was kind of in the mood for all of those Spacemen 3 associated bands, and I picked this one up. This is Spiritualized Fucked Up Inside, which is a live album from 1992. I believe it was recorded in California, and this was released I guess after Spiritualized, or no, it was before their second album, Electric Mainline. It's still, I don't think that album still had come out, although it did include quite a few songs from that album. And I guess what you see there on the front are some effects pedals. So quite a neat cover. I really like that, and it's sort of embossed and reflective and whatnot. So yeah, so this includes songs from Spiritualized's first two albums, and one song, Walking with Jesus, which is a Spacemen 3 song. Okay, so Spiritualized, again, the band formed by Jason Pierce, or Jay Spaceman as he's otherwise known, who was originally in Spacemen 3. So this, I would have to say, although it's a live album, I would put this up there with the classic Ladies and Gentlemen, We Are Floating in Space. I think it's that good. It's only a single disc, 7 songs. A couple of tracks are really long on side 2, but this is an amazing live album from Spiritualized. And next, I delayed in getting this album, but of course, being in the Spiritualized mood lately, I got their latest album, And Nothing Hurt. This was from, I think, 2018. It was being touted as Jason Pierce's last album under the Spiritualized name, but since then he hasn't sort of committed to that, and we may see some more Spiritualized albums. This is, I think, a bit of a return to form. I'm not going to say as good as Ladies and Gentlemen, We're Floating in Space, but it's pretty good. Very similar, a lot of sort of droning keyboards, the gospel vocals at times. This is quite an excellent Spiritualized album, and I would say a bit of a return to form. I kind of lost interest in them for the last couple albums before this one. And again, back to where it all started, the original band, Spacemen 3. I never owned this album in any format. This is Spacemen 3's first album, Sound of Confusion. This is much more space rock, I'm going to say, than some of the later stuff. I still would say that The Perfect Prescription's my favorite Spacemen 3 album, but this one's pretty good. It's a little harder than their subsequent albums. Galaxy 500 and their third and last album, This Is Our Music. So after this album, Dean Wareham left to form Luna. I have their first album today, which I think is better than this album, and I want to get On Fire, which is probably my favorite Galaxy 500 album. I've had that on CD. Definitely want to get that on vinyl, but then I saw the price for this go below $20, brand new. So I definitely had to get it. This is excellent stuff. One of my favorite Galaxy 500 songs, 4th of July, is the lead track on this album. And then an album that was released, I think, 2 or 3 years ago for Record Store Day, Arthur Lee and Love. It's a live album. This is called Highlights from Coming Through to You, and I know they released a live album, a live CD set, which was a 4 CD set called Coming Through to You. this is the highlights from that set. It's live from 1970 to 2004. So it doesn't include anything by the original lineup of Love. So this is definitely, you know, Arthur Lee and friends, if you will. But it includes some really classic Love tracks from the first 3 or 4 albums. Most of this is from 90 and 2000. So there's 5 tracks on side 1 from 1970. And then after that, the songs are either from, I think, 93 and onwards, with many of the tracks being from 2003, 2004. I had a few of these on the Live at Glastonbury that was done from 2003. I think about 4 tracks are from that. But I just love that cover. Amazing cover. I was looking for this a couple of years ago, but I think it was only a regional release on Record Store Day. I think it was 2016. So I was really happy to see this come out as a double LP set, which I think is what the Record Store Day was. Obviously less tracks than the 4 CD version, but really, really pleased to get this. And then in my top 3 guitarists of all time, Jeff Beck. This is called Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop, and you can see on the back there, it's Jeff Beck with Terry Bozzio and Tony Hymas, who I guess is a keyboard player. I don't know him. Terry Bozzio, obviously from Frank Zappa's band originally as well. And this is from, I believe, 89. Definitely late 80s. It has some of that 80s sound to it. But this is an excellent fusion guitar album. The 80s sound, you know, doesn't bother me at all. Definitely worth having this. I got this used for about $15 and was pretty pleased to get it. All instrumental, again, heavily fusion based. Just excellent, Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck's one of the best guitarists of all time, in my opinion. And then a couple of albums now from the Charlatans. The Charlatans, of course, were associated with that baggy Manchester scene back in the, I guess, late 80s, early 90s. This is one of my favorite Charlatans albums called Telling Stories. This is their 5th album. The big songs off of this are North Country Boy and One to Another. And this is, I believe, the 15th anniversary edition of this album, which includes the first disc, which is the Telling Stories album. And then the second disc is all the B-sides and bonus tracks from the singles from the album. So really, really pleased to have this. I was a huge Charlatans fan back in the 90s. I had a lot of these CD singles, so I'm familiar with a lot of the tracks on the second LP, but it's great to have that on vinyl. And then I think it was a couple of albums after that, they released Wonderland, which is also one of my favorite Charlatans album. This is a 2 LP set, but just includes the Wonderland album, no bonus tracks or anything like that. This album was a little bit of a different sound for the Charlatans. I think 2 main elements that they introduced on here was Tim Burgess, the lead singer. He introduced a falsetto vocal on some of the tracks, and there's also a little bit of a funk, light funk influence on these tracks, but still very much Charlatans sounding with the signature organ sound. And then an album I've been wanting for a while, The Who, BBC Sessions. This is, I don't think there's a year on this, but I think most of the tracks on here are from sort of the early Who mod days. I'm going to say 65 to maybe 67, 68. There's a couple of tracks after that, but the majority, I would say 3/4 of this is that early Who mod sound. Pretty good sound quality on here. There's some voiceovers from I guess some of the DJs introducing some of the tracks, that sort of thing. I really love these BBC session type albums. I wish there was more out there. Dinosaur Jr. Dinosaur Jr. is easily one of my favorite current bands. They reformed the original lineup back in 2005. Have put out 4 albums since then. This is one of their 3 original albums back in the day. Their 3rd album, in fact, before they then disbanded. So, of course, led by Jay Mascis, who's just an unbelievable guitarist. Lou Barlow on bass and Murph on drums. I mean, if you're even remotely interested in Dinosaur Jr., this is an essential album to have. Definitely, I don't know, probably this is up there with their 2nd album. This is fantastic stuff. The guitar playing on here is unbelievable. Jay Mascis' vocals, I think, got better actually later on the later albums. Much more melodic, a little bit rougher sounding on some of these earlier albums. The songs that you might know off of this is the classic song Freak Scene and also Budge. And then to end off, I showed some P.P. Arnold, her newest album called The New Adventures of P.P. Arnold on my last video. I got one of her albums from the 60s, Kafunta. This is a reissue from the 70s, though. It has a bit of a different cover, I think, to what originally came out. A lot of covers on here. I mean, this is, but she makes them her own. God Only Knows, the Beach Boys track, Eleanor Rigby, Yesterday, Angel of the Morning, As Tears Go By. This is excellent. I love this sound from P.P. Arnold. This was originally released on the Immediate label back in the late 60s in the UK. But this is amazing stuff. And her vocals really haven't changed that much, I think, over the years. I'm really digging her new album, The New Adventures of. That could easily be in my top 3, I think, for the year. So really happy to get this. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.